On this episode of 5 Minutes of Cloud, we're going to look at cloud from the perspective of an operator. When we talk about cloud from an operator's perspective, I'm not talking about somebody who's necessarily the DevOps guy, the guy who's the developer and the operator of the environment. I'm talking about the people that are actually still operating the cloud. They may actually integrate with the development team to provide part of the DevOps lifecycle and actually operate the applications as well. But there are plenty of use cases and plenty of needs still for operators of the cloud itself. Even the latest and greatest technology that people talk about now, this concept of a container instead of a virtual machine. Oh, so exciting. And yet you still have to have the container infrastructure in order to use these containers in an efficient and scalable fashion. So when we talk about cloud for operators, we're not just talking about operating your cloud or operating an application in the cloud as part of the DevOps lifecycle. No, we're actually talking about operating the cloud itself. And so there we suddenly see the same class of services, though, being required of the operator as would be required of a developer consuming cloud. Operators also want to have the flexibility to turn service on, enable new hardware into their cloud environment, and potentially retire old hardware out of their cloud environment in much the same way that an application developer would be able to turn an application on and turn an application off. And so I think we're seeing a new resource show up in the data center space, not just the DevOps systems managers, but actually the Ops Dev systems managers. Basically, those folks that are operators but are developing the operating environment in much the same fashion that somebody would be developing an application and at the same time developing the operations support for that application. I also think that there's a bifurcation that we're seeing as the operators focus more on managing the infrastructure and abstracting it away from the end user developers so that those DevOps resources can really focus on purely the operating components that are required for their application. The operators are now managing that infrastructure much more efficiently. They're still automating the processes of deploying it. They're automating the capabilities of enabling this infrastructure and these infrastructure services. And with all of this, we suddenly have real capabilities in actually being able to deploy environments. Now, the other thing that's happening is that there are more services that are suddenly becoming important for the operations staff. Whereas in the past, people thought about physical servers. Hey, I'd like a server, and potentially some services. Often we thought of the IT department as providing print service, for example, or potentially backup services. Those services are still a core part of what the overall systems operations teams might provide. More likely in the data center environment, we're talking about load balancing services as a network service that's a part of the cloud operations environment, or even the container deployment operations environment. We're talking about the storage backend services and backup to those storage services. So providing a range of different storage platforms, high performance, low performance, scaled out, low cost storage versus super high speed, all in memory class storage systems. Providing all these different environments requires operations skill. And because those environments need to morph and change as the applications morph and change, and as the infrastructure becomes more flexible, more dynamic, and potentially even more abstracted, the operators actually have to be able to do the same kind of deployment processes that any other application developer or application environment would require. So the automation of these services is really key to enabling operations from a cloud perspective. So again, just to recap, operations in the cloud space is really more about operating the cloud, potentially also operating the applications, but it's really about operating the cloud, dealing with the backup and management of storage, backup and management, and network service function enablement. And the same is true for compute, managing the life cycle of compute within the cloud systems environment. So these pieces all come together and force almost, or create a forcing function for the operators to actually build an operations development environment, Ops Dev instead of DevOps, is the way I sort of see it. And these environments are now actually changing how people consider consuming cloud, and really more importantly, how they operate cloud. So operations from a cloud operator's perspective really starts thinking more about automating the processes that allow operations at scale. Thanks for watching. This was Robert Starmer bringing you 5 Minutes of Cloud. 5 Minutes of Cloud is brought to you by Cumulus Technologies, the company I actually work for, and we really appreciate the fact that you actually attended and watched this little segment. We obviously have a YouTube channel here, so please subscribe to that. We have Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Yeah, I do actually find some interesting things to say on Twitter once in a while. And on top of that, we have a mailing list. If you subscribe to the mailing list, we have a free report, basically 5 pitfalls of cloud that you can avoid if you get my report. So why don't you hop on over to our website, sign up for the mailing list. You'll get that report delivered to your inbox shortly after signing up. And I think that's also another very interesting and important read. Thanks so much again for watching.